we were very hopeful going into that, maybe that this infectious disease doctor would be able to tell us what was going on with me. Why was I having all of these symptoms, the night sweats, the weight loss, the fatigue, and gave him the blood, gave him the symptoms. Never heard anything back. I had this feeling that my time wasn't up, but almost more like that I was kind of being tested on how much can I endure, and also what am I going to do when life hits. Yeah, I was at work. I was training a couple of new hires, and I had a telehealth appointment with my Mayo Clinic oncologist, and he said, "Nick, it looks like you've got some type of cancer, and it's spreading, throughout pretty much a good portion of your body. I need you to get up here immediately so that we can do a biopsy and figure out what's going on. We need to figure out if this is your IgG4 resurging, or we need to figure out what is happening here. How soon can you get to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota?" So that at that moment, that's when I knew things were real. And I think probably leading up to that call, I knew that it was only a matter of time before we had to get back into to fight mode, because I've been through this before and I wanted to prep, and I was in a leadership position at this time with direct reports, and I wanted to make sure everyone else was taken care of, and I didn't want them to see me sweating. And this time now I've got 3 kids as well, and a lot more to lose. And so I was rocked, but also I knew I had a great support system. And so my mom, who started going to the Mayo Clinic with me from my original visit and was really my road partner for many of my trips, the majority of my trips, up until I was, at that point where I was going only once or twice a year and was doing pretty well. I called her and said, "All right, well, looks like we got to get out the Mayo Clinic clothes again, get the hoodie and stuff, some of the souvenirs we bought thinking we weren't going back. I think we need to go back."
What was it like? Was there any impact hearing the word cancer versus knowing that you hadn't? I mean, you were going through chemo before. I'm just curious, hearing the word, what was that impact?
Yeah, I was just in disbelief. I really, because I had heard lymphoma so many times before, but the pseudo lymphoma, I almost felt like I wasn't, I didn't know, I didn't really fit in a box anywhere. I didn't fit in the cancer survivor group exactly because I didn't have a cancer diagnosis, and there was nobody else in my little interesting case group over here. Not too many people. So I was a little bit scared, once again, but also I just remained grounded in the fact that I wasn't sure exactly what I was dealing with just yet. And so I wanted to wait and to really understand what kind of cancer, what is the protocol look like. And I knew that my oncologist was going to be extremely thorough, as he always is, to give me that information. But yeah, I was scared, and I wasn't sure what that fight was going to look like just yet. And honestly, I kind of assumed that it would be similar to whatever I had gone through in the past, and just thinking, if I've gone through it once before, I could probably get through it again.
You get to Mayo Clinic, they do surgery to figure out more of what we're dealing with here. You were finally staged, stage 3 or 4. Can you talk about, we won't go too deep in the diagnosis, but what did your oncologist say had happened? What had your autoimmune disease had turned into something?
Yes. So, as mentioned before, my oncologist started diagnosing the IgG4 autoimmune disease in 1998, and had only had, 2 patients really, including me, He had told me about, several conventions that he had gone to, and maybe I think he found one other person that was being treated in Japan for something similar. But the way he explained it to me was, you already have a remarkable case, but you are the first person that I have ever treated that had IgG4, where your autoimmune disease mutated into a full-blown lymphoma. And so those were his words. My autoimmune disease had mutated into a full-blown cancer, into a lymphoma. And they staged me 3 through 4, meaning it was on both sides throughout my entire diaphragm, had made its way into part of my liver, and then was starting to make its way into my bone marrow.
You'd already been hit with, you're the interesting case. Here you are being told, you're not just an interesting case, you're an interesting squared case. Never seen someone like you before. Can you just walk us through what that felt like to hear that?
Yeah. And so, my doctor was very open, very honest, straightforward. And so he explained to me once again, the odds of the autoimmune disease, but then he also explained the rarity of the type of cancer that I had, which ended up.
Yeah, it was marginal zone.
Yeah, nodal marginal zone. So I wanted to say that he said that accounted for almost like only 2% of the types of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that they see, and that nodal marginal zone is pretty rare. But he did say that if caught, early, and especially if somebody's healthy, relatively, with everything else going on, that he did feel optimistic that we could treat it and get it to go away. But he was very honest and upfront, letting me know that for being as young as I was, I don't want to say 31 at that time, and having had the history that I had had over the course of the last 8 years since I was 23 with lymphatic diseases and issues, that there's a good chance that it may come back again at some point, and this could be something that I deal with for a while. And so, just very open, very honest, straightforward. They're not oncologists, and doctors don't win any prizes for making you get the warm and fuzzies and feel good about everything. But it was what I needed to know, what I needed to hear. And then once again, you would think that I just took him at his word and everything. But I even saw another oncologist back home just to make sure that the treatment plan and everything else that they had, that my oncologist at the Mayo Clinic had rolled out, was what she thought as well. Dr. Cynthia Chua, my neighbor, she's a survivor, 3-time survivor of cancer, and she's had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma before, and this doctor here locally treated her for it, and they just absolutely raved about her. And honestly, if they hadn't spoke so highly of her, I probably would have never gone to see her, and I went and saw her as well. She was extremely direct with me and let me know, the staging right off the bat, where I had to ask my other oncologist, what stage. And I think that probably goes into us working together for so long, and maybe they didn't want to scare me, or I'm not sure, but she was very direct with me, told me exactly what I was dealing with. And so and she also let me know that the standard of care that I was getting was the top of the line for the timing of which, my cancer was diagnosed, and how they were treating lymphomas. She said it is the standard of care, it is the best care, and where you're getting your treatment. She goes, I would treat you if you needed me to, or if I had to, but where you're getting your treatment is the best place that you could possibly go. So that reassured me, like, okay, the facts are the facts, and now we got to get to work.
I love that. Now we got to get to work. Roll up the sleeves and let's just do this. Before we go into the actual treatment that you went through, which we can touch on,
Mm-hmm.
You talked about how at this point, this time around, you had more to lose. Wife, 3 beautiful children. How much of that came into your head in terms of what really propelled you forward, other than, of course, we know we have to move forward, but what emotionally and psychologically and spiritually helped you?
Yeah. What propelled me forward was one, knowing that I have 3 boys, and I'm sure that the statistics have changed, but I believe the last time I heard that, 1 in 3 people is going to live with or fight cancer at some point in their life. And so it's very easy for me to look at my 3 boys and just do that math pretty quickly and understand that the facts say that one of them may inherit cancer or go through this at some point in their life. And then looking at um, my ancestry and my medical history, cancer runs in my family. And so for me, that was not an opportunity to stop, but more of an opportunity to lean in and I'm big on leadership and leading from the front and leading by example, and hopefully providing an example for my boys to see what 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 we do when life happens. When things get hard, what do we do? When we face challenges, what do we do? And they're gonna ultimately learn that through the examples that they see, and the people that they surround themselves with. And so that was something that I took, to heart very seriously, is that I have an opportunity to not only better myself, but to provide an amazing example of what it looks like to fight, and also what it looks like to prioritize yourself and to not be defined by your circumstances, but to rise above a tough situation and then to make the most out of the out of the hand that you're dealt. And so that was a big motivating factor for me. And then also, I just couldn't accept the fact that it was. I just didn't believe that it was my time. I felt that I had so much positive momentum going. Like I said, I had this wake up call before I had gotten sick. Where it was like I just asked myself, I'm like, what am I doing to raise my own personal stock price in this world? What am I doing? How much have I invested in my own self? And I hadn't invested much. And so that was when I went on my spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical journey. And like I said, when I got the diagnosis, my physical was almost removed, immediately through the hospitalizations and the weakness and the starting of the chemotherapy. And I knew that, oh wow, there's something bigger at play here, because these were things that I wasn't even thinking about necessarily a year ago. And now, as a result of having this foundation of a holistic wellness picture, I was able to say, okay, physically, I may not be able to do as much as I was able to do 2 months ago. I may not be able to run as much or do as many push-ups or any of those things, but I do have a great foundation for the emotional intelligence things that I can work on. I can still work on my emotional intelligence. I can still work on that. I can still read. I can still consume as much knowledge as I possibly can, and then apply that knowledge to make my life as meaningful and fulfilling as I possibly can. And then spiritually, I've got a great opportunity here. And that's how I looked at it, was to really see, like, well, are you really about the things that you say that you're about? And for me to lean in and to really do the work and roll up my sleeves, just like I had gotten down and done physically. I'm like, okay, well, now this is an opportunity for me to really work on these other tools and make those just as strong as my physical. And so that was the motivating factor for me, was that I had this feeling that my time wasn't up, but almost more like that I was kind of being tested on how much can I endure, and also what am I going to do when life hits.
Right. Well, you've proven that you've been able to figure it out each time so far. As we wrap this part of it, because you're still on maintenance chemo, is that right? And so
Yes.
first, though, with the nodal marginal zone lymphoma, you had bendamustine, Rituxan, and high dose steroids. How long were you on that regimen? And can you describe the side effects you had, and more importantly, how you got through them?
Yes. So, yep, you got the treatment regimen down, and so that was every 28 days. I went 2 days back to back. So let's say I went on Wednesday, and then I went on Thursday, and so I just received the intravenous drugs that you just mentioned there. And so in between, especially at the beginning, there was days where I needed to get additional fluids, and come back into the hospital, or if I spiked a fever. And often with that treatment, because the bendamustine, I believe, caused neutropenia and the white blood cell drop. One of the things that I battled often was neutropenia. I had febrile neutropenia a few times, so I spiked the fever, and because I had no white blood cells, I got several different and pretty nasty infections along the way that ended me up in the hospital. Things that healthy people typically just don't deal with, that our bodies are naturally, strong enough to fight off. That I wasn't able to. That landed me in the hospital. And so that was extremely difficult to go through and to juggle all of those things. But the chemotherapy really did a number on me. And at the beginning, I was so sick, and I think I remember telling you, one of my lymph nodes on the right side was so large that I had to physically like kind of move it down so that I could swallow, or just swallow water, or swallow food, and just to eat anything. And so I was really looking forward to starting chemotherapy, because I'm like, I know that once I get the steroids, the prednisone, and like those things will shrink and I'll get better. But man, I had so many stomach issues. My stomach was in so much pain after starting the chemotherapy. Unfortunately, right before I started chemotherapy, I got E. coli. So my stomach was in really bad shape going into chemo as it was. And then to put all those tough drugs on your stomach on top of it, was really, really tough. And so for a month, I suffered pretty badly with a lot of stomach issues. Just as a side effect. And so I wasn't able to eat very much. I had no appetite. I often had a very watery mouth, just like that precursor to getting sick. Dry heaving, every once in a while, especially when dealing with the neutropenia, I would, vomit, the diarrhea, the pretty unpleasant things that come with, the nature of going through chemotherapy.
Did anything help with those GI ones like diarrhea?
Yes. So the thing that helped the most with the GI, they prescribed me. It was omeprazole. So as omeprazole, a 20 milligram tablet once a day, and ironically, they had prescribed me this during one of my hospital stays, and you saw the picture, but there was so many medications that I was given. I had lost or forgotten that was one that I could take, that would help me, and I was already taking so much, and so no one told me or reminded me. I found it one day and remembered, oh my gosh, they told me that if I had stomach issues that I could take this as well. So I started taking that regularly every morning, and a lot of those underlying stomach issues and major discomforts that I was having went away. And like that was almost like a party in itself, was that I had found this medication. And I was like, yes. And I couldn't believe that I had forgotten it, but then also it was like, offered myself a little bit of grace. I have, this drawer full of medication, and sometimes you forget which ones that you're supposed to be taking, or which ones are elective.
Thank you, Nick, for sharing that. The last part I want to really dig into here. Well, actually, and you're on maintenance chemo, and things are okay. Like you figured
Yeah.
out a sort of, you're in a groove almost. Do you understand?
Yeah. So the neutropenia and the white blood cell deficiency was a big portion of my story. And as I finished the original chemotherapy schedule, so they scheduled me for 9 months. And so for 9 months, I was going to go through that every 28 days, 2 days, 2 days on. And so finishing that, I finished that at the end of, I want to say at the end of August, I finished that. And then September, took a month off, got scanned. And everyone, at this point is like, hey, let's high five. You're like, more cancer. And I didn't have any cancer on the scans, and which was amazing. But something, I think probably all the years that I had gone through this before, something told me, hey, it's not over really just yet. Like, just because your scan doesn't show cancer doesn't mean like you're done going to the doctor. I'm still going to have to get my port flush. I'm still going to get blood work. I'm still going to have the scans and the tests that are going to come for years after. But when I went back in October of 2021, Actually the week I started work back again, 2 days after starting work back, because at that point, like I didn't have any chemo on the calendar, and work is like, "Do you have any chemo?" And I'm like, "No, I'm done. I'm doing well and feel like I'm ready to come back." And then 2 days into work, I go back for a checkup. He's like, "Hey, by the way," local oncologist, like, "Hey, by the way, standard says that we put you on uh, a minimum of 2 years of maintenance, every 8 weeks of Rituxan and steroids." So what I've been going through since August of 2014. And so I went and got maintenance chemotherapy through January. But every time that I went to the doctor to get my maintenance and to get my blood work, still battling white blood cell deficiency and neutropenia. And so every time I went, I was continuing to get um, Zarzio, these shots to boost my immune system, basically to make it safe for me to be out in the world during a pandemic. And also I wanted to travel, and every time I wanted to, it seemed like every time I was getting ready to leave town or to go do something or to go participate in a race, I would get some blood results that would say that I was neutropenic. And so as a result of that, I actually had a third bone marrow biopsy done in March, at the beginning of March, because my oncologist was worried maybe you have leukemia, or another type of lymphoma that's coming up, because it doesn't make sense that you're still deficient here. And so the third bone marrow biopsy was inconclusive, no cancer, no none of that, and which is great news. And so they said, we're going to hold off on the maintenance at this point, because it's clear that your body's has gone through it, and we're only keeping you sick at this point. And so after a couple of times getting COVID and some other things this winter throughout, they said, let's stop. And so as of now, I've been off of maintenance since February, and still no signs of cancer. And honestly, for the first time since in my young adult life, and at all, I'd say since I was 22 years old, I feel healthy. I feel good. I feel fit. I have energy. I'm not having night sweats. And so I'm really celebrating life every day, every chance that I get. I celebrate life when I'm not feeling well, but really reminding myself of those days where you don't feel good and how you sulk in those days, and they're really long. I try to elongate these days of feeling good as well, because it's been a long time since I felt like this.
What is your go-to? What's one thing that you do when you're not feeling great, when that
Yeah.
helps you out?
Yeah. One of the first things that I do is I try to sit down and I do a gratitude list. I ask myself, and I ask it typically out loud, who or what am I most grateful for in this moment right now? Who or what am I most grateful for, most appreciative of in my life today? And so that causes me to take a deep breath and to stop rather than react to whatever emotions or feelings that I'm feeling right now, which are fleeting and they continue to change throughout the day. But often we react on those things, and then we become subject to whatever repercussions that we've caused during that. So it gives me an opportunity to slow down, to really shift back to neutral, and like I say, the facts. Let me state the facts, and the facts are: I'm extremely grateful to be above ground today. I'm extremely grateful to be able to brush my teeth, to put on my own clothes, to brush my to put on my shoes, to wash my body. Things that, if you've gone through this journey, to be able to even use the bathroom on your own and have some privacy, or to wipe your butt without having someone help you, is major. And until you've gone through that, you take those things for granted often. And so I start back at the base level and start thinking about those things. I'm grateful that my kids are healthy, that I have both of my parents. And then when I start going through that, I start realizing, like, wow, yeah, it could be better for my current situation, but it also could be a lot worse. And I'm very fortunate to have the things that I do have today. And so whenever I'm really feeling it, or if I'm in the thick of it, I go to a gratitude list. And then point two is I pick up the phone and I call somebody, or I lean on somebody that I can trust. Because I find that when I don't say how I'm feeling, I typically, like I said, compartmentalize or numb or bury those things. And all that does to me is it keeps me sick over time. So now that I'm trying now, then I have more emotional wounds to deal with later. And so I'm trying not to add anything on. And so I'm trying to use some of the tools and resources that I've learned along the way and use some of those, like, real-time tools that I keep in that invisible bag of tricks at my feet. And I try to utilize those. But gratitude is something that helps me get out of myself almost immediately. I hear Eric Thomas speak about this a lot. He's a profound motivational speaker that I look up to. Talks about recycling your pain, and I didn't realize that's what I was doing as I was going through this. But I have used all of this pain, and I have recycled this pain, and I've used it to find my higher purpose, and I follow that purpose with an extreme amount of passion. So, like I told you at the beginning of this, I am I'm fanatical about personal growth. I'm fanatical about maximizing human potential. And then also, as you've heard me talk about some of the real time tools that I use and remaining objective and neutral, I'm really big on mindset. And so, um, as a result of going through all of these different things that I've experienced over the last 9 years, I started a mindset and wellness coaching company called Mundy Mindset LLC. So my last name Mundy, Mundy, and then Mindset. And it's a mindset and wellness coaching company where I teach people to utilize the resources that they have right in front of them and that they have within them, and to utilize their mind to propel them to ultimately create their reality. Our minds are extremely strong, and often, as you've probably seen, your body will often follow or what your mind is telling it. And so, if your mind is telling you that you're sick, or if you have a defeatist mentality or attitude, or if you're focused on the negative, solely on the negative, or if you have pre-diagnosed yourself with a death sentence, the body typically can follow, and that can be extremely scary. I'm fanatical about that. It's my passion. And I just want, like I said, to create a place where I leave as many people positively impacted, and I leave people better than when I found them.